Good morning slash afternoon slash evening, everybody. My name is Max, and today I'm going to be talking about how to defeat Liadri the Concealing Dark as a Guardian. Liadri the Concealing Dark, as you probably know if you're watching this video, is the last boss of the Queen's Gauntlet and is a little difficult. Now, as of posting this video, I've got about 15 kills under my belt, including 2 8 orb kills and 2 burning gambit kills, so I like to believe that I have a fairly solid grasp on how to tackle this boss as a Guardian. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut to an explanation of the traits, gear, and consumables I use to defeat Liadri. Once that's done, I'm going to go over this clip again in full and try to explain kind of my strategy for dealing with her. So here we are in Scenic Ore, and what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at the gear and blah 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 that I use to defeat Liadri. It'll be fun. Let's look at it. So first we're going to look at the armor, which is full knights with Superior Runes of the Eagle. I use Berserker weapons with Superior Sigils of Energy and Superior Sigil of Force. And I still have my Soldier's Backpiece and rings, but I'm running Berserker, Amulet, and accessories. Pretty simple. I basically just wanted to gear for as much damage as possible without having to throw money at a Berserker set or, anything like that. Of course I do have Berserker weapons, but that's just from my old set that I trashed. So basically, it's just a mix of Knights, Soldiers, and Berserker for as much damage as possible while keeping my health pool a little high, just in case I'm taking damage from Liadri's auto attacks and stuff like that. Now, you'll see that I'm running Superior Sigils of Energy. It's pretty standard for me. I love these sigils, but they're also extremely helpful against Liadri because you need to have the ability to dodge more often. And every time you switch weapons with these sigils, you get a free dodge, which is extremely helpful for dodging AoE and moving around the arena faster when you're crippled or just in combat, because when you dodge roll while in combat, you actually move at regular run speed, which is a nice boost in speed. Now, you may look at my weapon choices and think I'm a little crazy, and that might be true, but this is what really worked for me. I tried Scepter once, didn't like it. I tried Staff once, didn't like it. But these weapons are what really just worked for me. It's my comfort zone. It's what I use almost for everything except for Zerg play in World v World. What's useful about the Greatsword is the 5-skill pool. It lets you grab onto visions and yank them into pools of light more quickly, and just you have more control of the fight. It also lets you force the Liadri into a better position for you to DPS her a bit during phase 2. As for the sword and focus, the Shield of Wrath is excellent for letting you sneak in and grab a bright crystal, even if there's a vision right there about to give you shit and blow up on you. It's also good for protecting you from Liadri's auto attacks. I wouldn't trust it to protect you from Shadowfall, because Shadowfall tends to layer, so it'll hit you multiple times anyway. But it is good for stopping visions from killing you when you're trying to get into position. I also believe it blocks the pulse from rifts that will pull you. At least that's been my experience. The sword itself gives you the Zealot's Defense, which is a really good burst skill when you're rocking Knights and Berserker gear, and the Sword Teleport, which is a blind, which can stop the visions from hurting you when they explode, because blinding does in fact stop them from hurting you because it's a cast, it's not a proximity explosion. They have to actually cast the explosion. It's a skill. And that said, it also helps you get into a better position. Say Liadri is spinning in place and the visions that she has with her are coming towards you. Now, as soon as the Shadowfall goes down and the visions are sufficiently far away from her, since she's spinning, she's not moving, so she's got space between you. You can teleport over to her, and you have a couple seconds to burst her down while the visions come back towards you, which is a really nice option to have. We've also got quite a bit of damage potential with these two weapons. First of all, we've got the Sword Focus setup, which is Zealot's Defense, and Shield of Wrath, which is a great burst skill if you're able to get the shield to explode on Liadri. Way you can do this is you can pop it if you don't need it for blocking at the moment, wait for it to end, mouse over it, or if you're just used to the timing, wait for it, and then sword teleport over to her right as it's about to explode, and you've got a nice little burst there. On the Greatsword, we've got Whirling Wrath. As long as you can place at least 1 or 2 ticks of that, you're in good shape. Then we've got Symbol of Wrath, which you can drop behind you when you're kiting her to force her to walk through it and take 1 to 2 ticks of damage. Leap of Faith is a fairly good damage skill in and of itself, but it's also really good for getting into better position, be it getting to Liadri while her visions are away from her so you can DPS her a bit, or getting to a safe zone in phase 2 so you don't take Shadowfall damage. Lastly, we have the Binding Blade, which if you don't use it to pull people, can be left on the target, Liadri, for a dot tick. quick trick about that. If you put Binding Blade on Liadri during phase 1, despite her invulnerability, she will take damage from it. I also believe she takes damage from retaliation if you're tanky enough to eat damage, which you should be with this build actually. You can pop your Hold the Line and Save Yourselves and eat a couple of hits during phase 1 from her Necrotic Grasp and do a little bit of retail damage to her. But if you're able to land even 2 Binding Blades, depending on how much Berserker gear you're running, if you have more damage gear than I do, you can do up to about 10% of her health within phase 1 before she even becomes active. And since I hear of a lot of people dying at 10-15%, and they just can't nail down the kill, I can see this being very useful to some people. So hopefully you can find a use for that trick. That said, you will be giving up some control during phase 1 over the vision, since you're using your Binding Blade solely for the purpose of damaging Liadri. So there is that trade-off. So real quick now, we're going to go over the traits that I use to kill Liadri. It's 0, 25, 10, 35 setup. It's something I put together almost exclusively for killing Liadri. After about my 3rd attempt, I realized Heal Away was not going to cut it. So, I mean, it might. I haven't tried it since I killed her. But this managed to get me a kill on my 5th attempt. So, basically, I wanted to up my burst damage while maintaining some sustainability, and I needed an on-demand condition removal, which is where Pure Voice came in. The 25 points in Radiance gives me 10% more damage when she has a condition, which is Burning or Vulnerability, mostly, or Blind. I went with Powerful Blades and Blind Exposure for the major traits in this line. Down in Valor, I went with Purity because I feel like 50% crit chance is enough that I didn't need Retributive Armor, or Retributive, yeah, that's what it's called. So I went with Purity to kind of ensure that I wouldn't get screwed by a cripple or a weakness or something during phase 2. It's helpful. I think those 5 points could be put somewhere else if you really wanted to. Say, if you want right-handed strength, go for it. It might actually be better if you want to burst her down faster. I just prefer Purity because I was going for an 8 orb and I wanted less margin for error during those attempts, so I just stuck with Purity. Down in Honor, which you've got 30 points in, I went with Superior Aria, of course. Two-handed Mastery so that I would have more control with my greatsword, more leaps and more pulls, and more Rolling Wraths so I could burst her down faster. And Pure Voice, of course, for my condition removal. And then we've got our 5 points in Virtues down here for the Inspired Virtue, which is an excellent minor trait. Alright, lastly, we've got our utilities, our slot skills, and our consumables. Real quick, we've got Shelter, Triple Shout, and then Renewed Focus. I've seen people beat her with Signet Resolve, but it seems silly to me to not run Shelter when it's able to block all of those one-hit Shadow Falls. And one-shits, man. Renewed Focus, again, blocks Shadow Fall. And then Triple Shout for the condition removal. Stability stops the rifts from pulling you. If you're in a bad position, you need to get something done before you get pulled. Save Yourselves is another stun break in case you get pulled, and it also gives you swiftness, and then Hold the Line is just condition removal and protection regeneration. Fun fact, if you're running enough toughness, like with this build, I've seen it happen, when you have protection up, if you happen to get hit by one of those visions, it won't kill you. It'll knock you down to almost no health, but it will not kill you if you have protection up and you're like max health with enough toughness on your build. And then we have our consumables. As you probably guessed, I'm running Bowl of Orient Truffle and Meat Stew, which is 100% chance to grant might when you dodge, and then 40% faster endurance refill rate. So basically with this build, you are dodging all the time, every day, for days. It's kind of ridiculous. Superior Sigils of Energy, Vigor on crits, and then this. For my utility, I ran Potent Spear Sharpening Stones because I like power, and there are cheaper stones. You don't need the really expensive ones. Maybe the quality sharpening stones will work for you. Just everything you can do to pump your damage up a little bit is something you should try to do. So those are the consumables I used. So with that all out of the way, let's go ahead and cut to an actual kill so that y'all can kind of see how I do it, and I can kind of give some tips while we watch the clip. Now, phase 1 eventually gets boiled down to a bit of a rotation. Once you've done it enough, as soon as you enter the arena, you want to head to the first rift, kill it, and head to the first vortex. Now, the first 2 AoEs that you have to worry about are going to spawn on the left side and the right side of this vortex, as you can see here. Just sidestep those and wait for the first vision. Now, as soon as this vision hits the portal, grab the crystal, hit her with it, and then you're going to head straight to the second vortex, as you'll see in a moment. You want to avoid the AoEs that are going to overlap this vortex. Now what I do is I grab this vision with Binding Blade, and then I run over to this vortex and I pull it and get it out of the way faster. As soon as I throw this, I head straight to the third vortex. I don't wait around. I grab this crystal and I throw it. You may have a little more trouble with the third vortex. If you end up having to fight visions to get that crystal, what you can do is you can lead the visions away a little bit and then dodge through them to get to the crystal quickly and throw it, and then dodge immediately after that so that you don't die to the visions which are coming closer to you. Now phase 2 is a little trickier since the Shadowfall positioning changes. They no longer only cover one quadrant in the room, instead they spawn sort of a figure 8. Now something we want to keep in mind is that there will always be 2 safe zones in the arena for the Shadowfall, and they alternate. If you're forced to dodge to avoid dying to Shadowfall, then you may as well stay in the same position you were when you dodged, unless you're being chased by visions, because that is probably where the next safe zone will be. Anytime you see a red zone, it's going to be clear the next time, unless it's in the center of the map, obviously, so you want to stay on the outside ring. Basically, since you're playing double melee weapon sets, you just want to kite Liadri around. Now, you're pretty high damage, so every time you get a chance, every time she leaps at you, you want to DPS her. Every time she leaps, you want to DPS her, because that's when you have space between her and the visions. Now, when she stops to spin in place, that's when you want to kind of watch for the visions to come closer to you. And once there's some space between her, right before she starts moving again and right after the Shadowfall falls, because there should be one, you want to teleport to her or leap to her, maybe even double dodge to her, and start DPSing her while you have time while the visions are moving back towards you. If you keep this strategy up, it's kind of fast paced and hard to keep up with when you're watching this clip, and I kind of get that. It's a little faster than just sceptering her to death, and it's a little more complicated, but it's very efficient once you get it down. The best advice I can offer to someone that's having a lot of trouble with phase 2 is to just try to memorize the way the Shadowfall patterns are going to work. You basically just want to keep on running in a circle the entire time. The only time you want to stop running around is when you're DPSing her. And if you're forced to stop to DPS her in a safe zone, then you need to be ready to run like very quickly if you're DPSing her during a safe zone, because that zone is going to be covered in Shadowfall in a couple seconds. If you have a panic button such as Shelter or Renewed Focus, you can DPS her to your heart's content in the safe zone and just wait for it and then eat the Shadowfall with Shelter or Renewed Focus. Or if you're really good at dodging, you can just dodge it, and then you can sit there and wait for the next safe zone, because that's what it's going to be. The only thing you have to worry about when you're doing this is that visions are still going to be coming at you. Now you can try to juke this by blinding the visions and then running into them, but there's definitely some risk to that, because obviously the blind might not last very long, and they might wait until it ends to actually cast their explosion, which of course will mean you die. Another quick tip that you should know is that the orbs and the visions can rally you. If you've done enough damage to the visions and they explode on you, then you will probably instant rally, but of course you need to be ready to dodge or block or invuln or something as soon as you get up, because you're probably about to get hit by something else. The orbs, the rifts, will also rally you, so if you die next to one, you can hit your 2 skill and blast it and you will rally off of it. The 1 skill will just be obstructed, so you actually have to get yourself down next to them, or just hope you get down next to them close enough to use your 2 skill. So that's something to remember. My first 8 orb kill, I actually got downed, and I managed to rally off an orb by 2 scaling it, which was very nice. One last piece of advice I could probably offer to more bunkery players who insist on running kind of a balance / bunker build against Liadri is that retaliation works really well against her as long as you're able to take the damage. In phase 1, as I said earlier, you can use Binding Blade and a combination of retaliation damage against her to get a little bit of health off of her bar before phase 2 actually starts. In phase 2, obviously she has a lot of multi-hit abilities, so if you can take the damage, you can stand on her whirl and just do massive amounts of retail damage, and you can stand on her whip attack, which actually hits 3 or 4 times each swing. You just have to have the ability to get out of there just quick enough to get out of the Shadowfall that's coming, or have some kind of panic button for it. With that same mindset, using the build that I've outlined, or something similar, even Healway, you can run the Defender's Flame trait, and instead of eating all the damage from her rolling attack and such, you can pop Shelter and eat all that and just stack a very, very large amount of burning on her. And it won't do direct damage immediately, but it will do a lot of damage over time, so that is also an option. Anyway, I hope you found this video useful. I know I promised to post a little bit earlier today, but it takes a really long time to render and upload when it's this long. I didn't expect it to be this long, but, you know, stuff happens. I'm going to be posting an 8-orb video either later tonight or tomorrow morning. It probably won't have any commentary on it. It'll just be kind of to watch and kind of see how I do it, because honestly there wouldn't be much more I could say about it, because I basically just implemented the same strategies I outlined here. It's just that you have to last a little bit longer and be able to do damage to her over the course of the fight to be able to end it quickly enough so you don't hit the time limit. So thank you for watching, good luck, and I will see you on the field.